Today on the show, we sneak out after curfew, visit the 5 wonders of the mall, and refuse to say goodbye. Welcome to Lore Party, the podcast that explores the stories, characters, and universes of our favorite video games. I'm Connor.
And I'm not Joel because I'm Lawrence.
No one can be Joel, unfortunately. There's one and only. And I think Pedro Pascal has claimed that title.
Yeah, got him.
We all want to be Joel at some points. But, I don't want to be Joel after our last episode. I don't want a bat sticking out of me, so yeah. I'm not jealous of that.
I want to be Joel minus the home run fever, so yeah. So I will, yeah. So I want to be Joel sometimes.
Sometimes on the good days.
I think in this episode, I would rather be Ellie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Ellie got to hang out in a mall, play Mortal Kombat, dance on an escalator.
Bro,
had the time of her life.
I have my thoughts about Mortal Kombat because have you ever, I will get into this later, but I swear to God, if you go to a barcade now and there's a Mortal Kombat machine there, it is fucked up in some way. Like the buttons are sticky and shit, and it just doesn't work. So I was like, amazing that you guys found the one Mortal Kombat machine in the world that people were like, I could take care of this.
An MK2 cabinet still functional after 20 years. Okay, there's a lot that I can suspend my disbelief for, but that is a stretch.
Yeah, all the buttons worked somehow. Fucking terrible.
We're going to get into all that and more as usual. The drill here. We're going to break down episode 7 of The Last of Us, titled Left Behind, and get into our thoughts, our reactions, how we felt about this episode, and everything else in between. But first, we're going to do a little bit of housekeeping. We'd love to hear from our listeners. Anytime you like, please feel free to email us at podcast@loreparty.com with your thoughts, questions, criticisms, episode ideas, thoughts. I already said thoughts. We want double the thoughts.
Yes,
so.
All your thoughts. Times 2.
Times 2. Yeah, don't be shy. Hit us up. And if you want to get in touch with us directly, you can reach out to Lawrence on Twitter and Twitch at @producedby_LK.
You can find Connor on Twitter at Connor Howard, Connor with an ER, Connor Howard VO at Twitter, or the @ and on Twitter when you're on there. If you type that in, you will find Connor. And then if you don't want to be on Twitter because Elon Musk is tanking it, you can also visit Connor on his website at connorhowardvo.com. Check it out.
And of course, if you want to get in touch with the entire Lore Party team, you can connect with the Lore Party in general on Instagram, Twitter, and Twitch at @lore_party.
Woo.
That's right. So, without further ado, we're going to break down episode 7, Left Behind, of HBO's The Last of Us. But first, we'll take a quick break and hear from our sponsors. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
And we're back to cover this exciting episode that, just real quick, this is the one Last of Us, one piece of Last of Us content that I haven't consumed. So this is an interesting episode. I am now one of those people who hasn't played the game but has watched the show. So
that's interesting, yeah, because this is based on the DLC for Last of Us Part 1, which is called Left Behind, and that's the only part of any of the gameplay stuff that you haven't played yet. That's crazy.
Yeah, so now I have become what I talked about in our trailer episode. Here we go, full circle.
Wow.
But before we dive into this, if you haven't watched this episode, if you haven't watched this Last of Us episode titled Left Behind, or played the video game like me, you might want to pause here, take a second, play the DLC, watch the episode, do both, do one, and then come back.
Please come back. Make sure. Yeah, don't forget that last part.
Yes. When you come back because it's definitely worth it. This is the best Last of Us podcast. It's so good that Neil Druckmann thought about making it the unofficial Last of Us podcast.
Neil Druckmann's in our inbox right now, begging us to let him endorse, but we're still we're not sure, you know.
Yeah, and like just like Jesus and Mero say, we're the number one podcast in the world. Don't look it up.
Don't
look it up. Don't look it up.
Don't ask Neil if that's true at all. Yeah. Don't bother him. That's right. So now that you've officially been warned about spoilers, let's get into it. So, episode 6. Last time, here's my DBZ voice. Last time on The Last of Us, episode 6, which is called Kin, ended with Joel and Ellie finding out that the Fireflies they were looking for had relocated their lab all the way to Salt Lake City, Utah. But they were attacked as they left the University of Colorado. Some random raiders and bandits got the jump on them. Joel managed to kill their attacker, but he was gravely wounded in the process, leaving Ellie to plead with him to stay with her. So, episode 6 was definitely a cliffhanger, ended on a dramatic note for sure.
Baseball bat to the stomach.
Home run fever.
Yeah. Batting 1,000.
Damn.
So episode 7 opens up on a snow-covered suburban neighborhood littered with abandoned vehicles and other debris. In the basement of one of the houses, Joel lies on a mattress as Ellie desperately attempts to clean and patch the wound in his abdomen. Mm-hmm. Joel, being Joel, urges her to leave him and run for her life and return to Tommy and Jackson, which I'm pretty sure since Ellie was just getting used to using a map in a car, she doesn't know where the fuck she is going to go. So, like, yeah, Joel, that's a pipe dream.
That's a tall order. You can tell her to just go north, but that's not enough.
Yeah, hey, north is, and I'm also not going to trust which way north is from a guy that's got stabbed by a baseball bat and is, like, losing a lot of blood as we speak. So, you know, Ellie slowly and reluctantly makes her way to the top of the stairs and pauses at the door.
Yeah, seems to go into deep thought. And in fact, we go into thought with her. We are sent on a flashback to, probably not quite a year ago, but like, a while back, months ago, probably, to a flashback at the Fedra boarding school where Ellie was raised. And we see Ellie running laps in a gymnasium while listening to All or None by Pearl Jam, a real emo bop, if I do say so myself. It's classic. And her headphones, though, get snatched away right off her head by another girl in her and Ellie's group by the name of Bethany.
Fucking Bethany.
Fucking Bethany, man. Yeah. This obviously kicks off an immediate, standoff. Bethany kind of tells Ellie, like, hey, pick up your pace. I don't want to have to run doubles because of your shitty attitude again. So, obviously this is not the first time they've fought. And Bethany also mentions, like, you're not going to do anything about it because your friend isn't here to fight your battles for you. Kind of drops a hint that Ellie had a friend who normally stuck up for her, but now she doesn't. And so Bethany thinks, I can walk all over you now. But Ellie's like, think again, motherfucker. And she rears back and takes a swing.
Yep. Take that, Bethany.
Take that, Bethany. That's right.
Yeah, I do love this that it starts here because I do know, I haven't played Left Behind, but I do know there is a graphic novel that covers Ellie's backstory, like pretty much all the way up to the point before she is introduced to Joel in the beginning of the first game. And so like I liked that they started it right here because it is a little bit into her story.
Yeah.
So the next time we see Ellie, she's sporting a black eye and sitting in the office of Captain Kwong, the Fedra officer in charge of her school. Kwong seems disappointed in Ellie, pointing out how, she's been acting up over the past few weeks, adding that Bethany's in the infirmary with several stitches. And I mean, hey, man, listen, like Lil Jon and the East Side Boys said back in the day, don't start none, won't be none.
As Killer Mike said, top of the morning, my fist to your face is fucking Folgers.
Exactly.
And Ellie gave it to her. It was one of those things like, yeah, Ellie has a black eye, but it's like, you should see the other chick.
Yeah, it's like, hey, man, you shouldn't have done it. So Kwong, being the cool guy he is, he levels with Ellie and tells her that, there are two paths ahead of her. The life of a grunt with no future, which is like 90% of Fedra.
Right.
And the life of an officer who plays by the rules and is rewarded with responsibility and privileges. Kwong sees a leader in Ellie and encourages her to work towards a future in which she can make a positive difference and hold what's left of the world together. Ellie takes her Walkman back, oof, and is dismissed. Yeah, like that is a fucking crazy conversation. Like, because this is a good, get it, like we talked about this a little bit before we started, but like this part does add a little bit of a human element to Fedra.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, because like any organization, like any institution, Fedra is comprised of people, and some of those people have good intentions, some of them don't. So it's nice to like have that aspect explored a little bit, and just peek behind the curtain for you and anyone else who hasn't played the Left Behind DLC. This isn't part of the game. Like in the game, you don't really get a conversation with a Fedra officer. So I like that the show is like kind of going out of its way to show you that, which is cool. And later. It's later that night in her dorm room. Ellie is laying in bed and reading an issue of Savage Starlight. Very nice. And we see just a peek around her room. We see some of her music collection. We see an Aha tape, a cassette tape of Aha. And she is, sitting there just chilling out in her room, and she glances across the room at the empty bed that's, on the other side of the room. So, we assume that she had a roommate, but that roommate's gone. And so she just, waits until lights out, turns her lights off, and goes to sleep. But then at 2 a.m. that night, it's dead of night, an intruder opens Ellie's window and sneaks inside, catching Ellie by surprise. And Ellie wakes up and immediately goes into fight mode, knocks her attacker away from her, and grabs her switchblade too, ready to fuck shit up. And then realizes, no, this is her friend Riley, who had been missing for 3 weeks. And obviously Ellie's not happy. She's like, where the hell were you? Also, what were you thinking? Jumping me like that. This was so funny to me. This is so wild to me. Riley's like, it was a joke.
Right. Like,
what's the joke though?
Yeah. Home invasion.
Yeah. Me accidentally stabbing you. I don't see what's funny about that.
It's the new TikTok trend. Sneak in through people's windows and surprise them in their bedroom.
And get stabbed. That's one of those, prank gone wrong videos on YouTube. Oh yeah, dude, it's a prank, bro.
Yeah, right. And just for a little bit more context, we live in a stand your ground state, so
quarantine zones are, castle law is in effect. You can kill anyone in your house.
Yeah, so I imagine a quarantine zone in Boston in the middle of apocalypse. It's like anything goes, bro.
Right.
So yeah, this is not a time and place for that.
So yeah, Ellie's obviously upset. Where have you been? You've been gone for weeks. And Riley reveals, well, I've been gone because I joined the Fireflies. And Ellie doesn't believe her at first, but Riley shows her a pistol tucked into her pants. Like, yeah, there it is. Got a gun. It's legit. And so Riley promises to explain everything to Ellie if she agrees to sneak out with her. Now, Ellie pushes back. She bickers a bit at first, but eventually she agrees. So she changes clothes and gets ready to head out while Riley looks over Ellie's cassette collection and her Walkman. That'll be important later.
Yeah, and that was like a hilarious scene because like she had to look away and look at the cassette tape because like she didn't want Riley to. Ellie didn't want Riley to see her changing, which is just a little bit of insecurity. Like this is like, it's funny to see Ellie in this episode because like we've seen Ellie. Like, she's still the same shit-talking Ellie, but she's much more vulnerable and much less, like... I mean, I guess the opposite is much less closed off. So, like, she's still, like, snappy, but she's, like, definitely different.
Yeah, it's almost like we're seeing a little bit more of... I don't know. She's at a phase in her life where she's allowed to be a kid still.
Yeah.
Whereas when she's, leaving Boston with Joel and all that... she has to grow up really fast and kind of mature. But here it's like, yeah, she's still a kid in a lot of ways. And
she doesn't have real responsibility.
That too, yeah.
That's what I like. It's like she's got like, she's got the 2 paths of Kwong, but she doesn't have like, hey, you can save the entire world.
Right.
Hey, little kid.
Yeah. Yeah, she doesn't have the pressure of being immune and like having to stay alive and, having to learn how to trust Joel and all that. Yeah,
Yeah.
her life is not as complicated right here.
Yeah, it's just
yet.
kicking it, So
Yeah.
the two
Yeah.
climb down to the street and narrowly avoid a federal patrol and swap stories about fights they've been in. Riley encourages Ellie to pick her battles better. After ducking into an apartment building, they find a dead body and a bottle of liquor, which scares the shit. I don't know why. The Sunday scaries from The Last of Us. I was like,
Right.
this body might not be dead.
Yeah, we're kind of primed for jump scares a little bit, or at least creepy stuff to happen. So
We kind of got like a jump laugh for this one though, but
right.
he's like, so this dude is it's a dead. They find this dead body. He's like, he's apparently committed suicide.
Mixed pills and liquor. Yeah.
Yeah, your pills and your perks. Don't do that, kid. Don't do that, kids.
Nope.
It's bad. Look at this
They
guy.
don't mix. Yeah.
Like, but hey, in typical apocalypse fashion, they score a whole and almost full bottle of whiskey. Like,
and Ellie points out this isn't moonshine either. This is the good stuff from back when.
This is that capitalist shit, man. Yeah, this is that mass production shit. So like premium quality. So, they take the bottle and then the floor just cracks and comes apart and the body falls below. So there's your jump laugh because this body just fell down a few floors and it's kind of hilarious.
Boston's falling apart. That's how you know.
Yeah, bodies just raining from the sky. So Ellie and Riley go to the rooftop and start sharing the bottle of whiskey.
Right. It's a party. They're getting loose, and it's teenagers out after curfew. It's the tale as old as time. Being in a martial law quarantine zone does not change that. Like, you're still teenagers who've broken into your parents' liquor cabinet. Basically, it's the same vibe. So they're hanging out on the rooftop, sharing, getting drinks. And Ellie asks to hold Riley's gun. Hey, can I hold that? And Riley's like real serious at first. Like, they made me promise not to let anyone, quote, handle my sidearm. She's really already talking like a militant. It's pretty funny. But, she eventually is like, okay, fine. And so they hold it. But then they start talking about, how Riley first fell in with the Fireflies. She mentions how she was out sneaking around one night after curfew. I think she said, Ellie was in the hole at the time, so Riley was bored by herself and snuck out and just kind of got randomly recruited by a woman who we can assume, or at least we can presume, is Marlene.
Yep.
Just saw it said, hey, I saw you sneaking around. You seem capable. What do you think of Vedra? So we're getting this sense that like Marlene will just literally grab any kid off the street and ask them to be a Firefly, which is fucking weird.
Anyone. And it's like, I just picture Marlene sneaking out of the shadows like Batman. It's like, hey, kid, I see you sneaking around here. What is your thoughts on Fedra? I'm like, this is like, okay. Like, this is could go in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, it's a little creepy, not gonna lie. It's got that Bruce Wayne singing an orphan, like, hey kid, you want to be a Robin?
Rubbing his hands together. Want to be my ward?
And so, Riley mentions being recruited, and this actually sparks a little debate between Ellie and Riley about the whole Fedra Firefly conflict, because Riley's very serious about the struggle. She describes Fedra as, and I quote again, fascist dickbags, while Ellie thinks, she's like not quite so sure. She's like, well, I don't know, because she kind of points out, the military do kind of like, they hold things together. She's under the impression that Fedra does serve an important purpose, even with their flaws and drawbacks and all that. And, the debate doesn't go very far, though, because Riley kind of deflects and says, hey, well, let's get going. We're almost there. And so they start jumping across the gaps in the rooftops. Very, very classic kids out at dark when they shouldn't be and just taking a shortcut across the rooftops. And they do that for a while because when they're done, they are exhausted.
You know what I love about this scene is like, say what you will about either side, Fireflies or Fedra, but this is the Spider-Man meme of scenes because like where they're pointing at each other it's like one person's like, well, Fedra's a fascist dickbag and the Fireflies want to, bring everything back. And the other person is like, well, the Federa's holding everything together. And I'm like, you guys realize right now that you are two fucking teenagers that
Right.
have been indoctrinated into two separate military camps. So no matter how good the Fireflies are, Marlene is still sneaking around in the shadows like Batman, pulling children
Yeah.
into her ranks. And it's
Right.
like pulling children into their ranks and arming them and then leaving them alone. And it's like, it's not
Yeah.
even like she's recruiting based on like a sort of manipulation, because it's like, oh, how do
Yeah.
you feel about Fedra? And now I can
Yeah.
build off of that. And then like, meanwhile, you got Kwong over here that's like, hey, listen, motherfucker, you could be an officer. We got good meals. We don't go out in the shit. And
Yeah.
we have the responsibility, aka we dictate down to the grunts.
Right.
So
Right.
like, you got all you basically have are two people that are presenting two impressionable children with pipe dreams right now. So that conversation made me laugh, because I was like,
Yeah.
and both of you guys are just being taken advantage of.
That's a good point. It's kids, Riley makes this point to Ellie all the time, is you don't know everything. Like Riley kind of tries to remind Ellie, like, you don't know what you're talking about necessarily, but it's kind of like, you might not either. Like,
Yeah.
you were just kind of sold this bill of goods from basically a stranger.
Yeah.
And yeah, you're both child soldiers in a way.
Yeah.
You're both basically being groomed to be child soldiers.
Yeah.
Neither of you realize it.
Yeah. Hey, do you hate these guys? Yeah, well, we're better.
Right.
That's
Right.
the argument. But like, so after an exhausting hop across the rooftops, the two trade barbs about Fedra and the Fireflies again, before Riley shows Ellie their goal, an abandoned mall sealed off by Fedra, which is like a teenage paradise. So what a typical teenage story. Let's go to the mall.
Let's go to the mall. Yeah.
Yeah. Look at these kids. Luckily, Riley knows a way into the sealed mall. Inside the mall, Riley reveals that the building has been reconnected to the power grid. She sends Ellie ahead, wanting to surprise her before turning on the power, which I was like, hell fucking no. I'm not going on some...
Not doing it.
Yeah, no way. Jesus, this bad news bears if I ever saw it. Like, fuck that.
No surprise is worth that risk.
Hell no. Nah. So Ellie stands at a railing overlooking the mall, awestruck when the lights come on and the building returns to life. And I was just like, fuck yeah, fuck that. No.
That was a pretty impressive sight, though. I will give her that. Like, just that kind of, you're on that railing. Like, most people have been in a mall with 2 floors where you're kind of like at the second story and looking out across like all the lights and the storefronts. It's pretty impressive. And for Ellie, having never been to a mall before, back when they still existed, she's just floored by it. So that was a cool scene.
Yeah, that has to be wild too, because like this is early. Do you gotta think early 2000s when it closed? Like early 2000s mall, like the 90s mall era, and then the early 2000s mall era were the shits. Like malls suck now.
Yeah, malls are dying, but yeah, like 2003 would have been basically peak mall culture where everyone would hang out at the mall. Yeah. I remember those days.
Yeah, so like that was like nostalgic. Like if it was like, oh god, the apocalypse popped off 5 years ago and you went to a mall, I'd be like, ain't nothing here I want. I'd be like, oh, you're taking me in a mall? Fuck that.
I mean, I've been to malls recently and it's like they are already abandoned. It's not much would change.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like, obviously the lights come on, and when the nostalgia of what she's seeing wears off a little bit, Ellie gets concerned. Like, this is really bright. Aren't we going to, draw attention? Like, the cops, the soldiers are going to see this. And Riley assures her, like, hey, it's cool. This place is like a bunker. Nothing's going to be visible from outside. It's all good. And then she kind of baits the hook. Like, I mean, we're here tonight, so I can show you what Riley likes to call the 4 wonders of the mall. And so, like, we have the call to adventure here. The night's really getting started finally, and we hear a classic song that we all know and love. "Take on Me" by Aha starts playing, and Ellie doesn't even get into the mall proper before her mind is blown by the escalator. She's like, "Whoa, moving stairs!" And she's kind of like running up the down escalator and just like amusing herself. And it's It's adorable, honestly.
Hey, an escalator is the shit. Like, even now.
Escalators are pretty cool.
Yeah, like, I mean, shit. If I don't have to take stairs, God, escalators will always be cool to me. So like, I can only imagine experiencing one for the very first time. Sorry for all you
Absolutely.
people that are afraid of escalators, but they're actually really
Absolutely.
cool.
They are friends, not enemies.
Yeah.
We love our escalators here. And so it's so funny because like she's so impressed by the escalators. Riley's like, this isn't even one of the wonders. And Ellie's like, oh really? And it's like, okay, well, I guess there are 5 wonders, not 4. And so like 1 down, 4 to go.
Yeah, hey, it's got to be. It should have been on the list in the beginning. But
Absolutely.
So they go deeper into the mall, which appears to be free of infected. The friends,
Miraculously.
I know, right? Because I'm like, this is sealed off. Why is it sealed off? And so deeper into the mall, the friends come across a lingerie store where Ellie checks herself out in the glass. And after a suggestive / playful comment from Riley, which like begins to like let you show, or it begins to show you that there's this is maybe there's something there. Like they're definitely like very close friends. Like they're like best friends, but there may be something more under the surface. But like obviously you're not going to be able to get to that in the military or military boarding school in the middle of a dictatorship. So like, yeah, they're friends with probably some unexplored feelings.
We're getting that impression, yeah.
So, further on, Riley asks Ellie to close her eyes and hold her hand, leading her to the second wonder, a functional carnival-style carousel, which, God, malls did be having them.
That's right. Yeah, those merry-go-rounds, they were everywhere back then.
Yeah, those was. I kind of regret now, like not riding them. So I was like, damn, this episode got me all sorts of nostalgic. But
Absolutely.
And so Riley powers on the ride, and the two hop on, sharing a peaceful and fulfilling moment together. They also exchange glances and continue sharing that bottle of booze, because this was like a big bottle of whiskey.
Oh yeah,
this is like
it's gonna last them a while.
Yeah, this was like someone rated at Costco.
Yeah, it was a handle. It wasn't like a mini bottle or anything. They were just, it's a jug almost.
Yeah.
So yeah, you just. Dude, drunken carousel ride. That sounds fun now. I haven't been 13 in a long time, but I'd go for that now. Hell yeah.
Bucket list item added.
Absolutely. So yeah, they're on the carousel for a while, but eventually the ride actually breaks down and kind of comes to a stop. And, they're like, ah, shit. Well, Riley says, let me go see if I can fix it. But Ellie is curious. She wants to know if Riley really thinks that the Fireflies can truly, actually liberate the quarantine zones like they claim they want to which Riley responds, well, it's been done in other zones. Like it's been done before. And Ellie tells Riley she wishes Riley would come back to the school so that they could be officers together and basically liberate Boston from the other side of the law, basically. Like Ellie, I think she's still thinking about what Captain Kwong said. Like, why don't we just go back and change the system from within, basically, is what she's trying to hoping they could do eventually. But Riley kind of is not as optimistic as Ellie about it, because she shares that she's actually been assigned a job by Fedra. She says, Kwong told me that when I turn 17, which will be coming up soon, I'll be getting sewage detail. And it's like the downer. It's like, oh shit, that sucks.
Yeah, go back to episode 1. Remember what they were like? What pays more? The one with the shit.
Yeah. Which explains why Riley ran away weeks ago and stayed away for so long. And now that she's been told this, Ellie kind of nods and she says, well, I understand. And I would have understood back then if you'd told me. And so like she's still a little mad that Riley ran away and hid that from her. But, Riley says, hey, I'll make it up to you. We got 3 more wonders. How about we go check them out?
Yeah. And the next wonder is a photo booth near the carousel. Which Riley is prepared for. She feeds a $5 bill into the machine, which was funny getting to where the money comes from later. But I was like, why do you have money?
Where'd you get that?
Yeah, I was like, well, that's weird. But she puts $5 into the machine, and the two like hurriedly come up with some poses to do together, and the machine snaps photos. And after the last pose, Riley takes like time physically separating herself from Ellie, like she's hovering. We see
not in a hurry.
Yeah, there's some lingering. That's more than a church hug. And
Yep.
so the photo strip comes out and it's faded, but Ellie decides, to keep it anyways.
Mm,
As they leave, the fourth wonder can be seen, the fourth wonder can be heard from a distance.
that's right. Yeah, they're like in the corridor heading in that direction, and it's like, oh, do you hear that? And faintly in the distance, you can hear bleeps and bloops and electronic noises, and then the camera cuts to basically the entrance of the fourth wonder, and we see Ellie telling Riley, "This is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen." And the camera pans into this bright, loud, flashy arcade.
Yeah.
And I agree. Arcades are a beautiful sight.
Yeah.
They really are.
Yeah. I feel like side note, arcades are very, it's like our generation and previous generation, obviously.
Mhm.
And like arcades have missed the next generation because they just were like, you know what? Everybody who liked this is getting old, so let's add alcohol.
That's right. Yeah, we had arcades growing up, and then they kind of went away for a while. And then when we were adults with disposable income and were legal to drink, suddenly the barcade boom happened. And it's like, yeah, so I feel like the Zoomers kind of got skipped a little bit on growing up with arcades.
They didn't.
It's
They didn't
sad.
want them. They had mobile games and
True,
and
yeah.
the TikToks.
That's right.
You can't play Fortnite in an arcade machine.
Oh man, that's true. I feel like someone's working on that. Let's bring Fortnite into the malls somehow.
God,
That'll bring the kids back.
that would be weird as hell. I'm very much vividly picturing playing Fortnite with a arcade joystick right now, and
I don't know how that would work. That'd be so weird. And so, they're at the arcade and they're just like going for it. They're ready to roll. And Riley's again prepared for this because she breaks open a coin machine so they can play these games, and they dive into a match of Mortal Kombat 2. Absolute classic. Love that game. And, they're just Riley's obviously played it before. It's Ellie's first time, and they're sort of like, going at it, mashing buttons and maiming each other's characters. They play several rounds. They just go over and over and over again. And we get, kind of the callback to episode 3 a little bit where Ellie remembers this game later. She sees the cabinet at Mortal Kombat 2 and is like, talks about Melina, the character who eats people and spits out their bones. And so she's like doing that again, which is cool. And so while they're playing, though, downer note coming up, we kind of pull away and see an infected person who's been basically growing into spores in the wall in a nearby store, hears the noise and sort of stirs and comes to life, and he pulls himself away from the wall. And not a good sign, to say the least.
the vegans are coming.
The shroom heads are back at it.
The shroomers. Yeah.
Okay, Shroomer.
Oh God. The game is finished and Riley prepares to take Ellie to the next wonder, but Ellie becomes reluctant and says she should head back, offering to meet Riley at the mall the next day. Which, like, yeah, I mean, like, Ellie was like, I gotta wake up at 5, and I feel like they went to the mall at like 2 in the morning. So yeah, it's like, gotta get back, or you might as well either get back or stay, because like I don't feel like you can make it back in time. But Riley actually convinces Ellie to stay, with the prospect of a gift. And so they go to the nearby food court, and Riley takes Ellie behind a taco stand and gives her a present. No pun intended. Volume 2 by Will Livingston.
Hell yeah.
The fucking Will Livingston books. Now we have
back.
We get the origin of this book.
That's right. Ellie's like so thrilled with this. She's like, "Oh my god, I didn't know they made a second one." So it was pretty cool.
And so you see that they've shared this this love of very bad puns in a book before.
Mm-hmm.
So this gift thrills Ellie. It's clear that, but we also get at this point, it's clear that Riley has been living in this part of the mall. Like, this is where Riley has been.
Yeah, we see sleeping bags and stuff. It's like, wow, okay, you're setting up shop.
Just chilling in a taco place, which is like wild because there's no other fireflies there. But hey,
Yeah.
So
Interesting.
So the two trade jokes for a minute before Ellie discovers a cache of pipe bombs made by Riley.
Oof.
And, this triggers an argument. Also, like, I'm just like, I wouldn't shake a pipe bomb made by a 16-year-old. I was
Might
like,
want to handle that carefully.
yeah, well, it would have been like, I'm going to put this down. We're going to, like, why would you put me right next to these things? But hey, whatever.
Jeez.
And so, it triggers an argument, and Ellie accuses Riley of helping the Fireflies kill soldiers and realizes Riley didn't find them all. She has been posted here.
Yeah, so the tone has definitely darkened and it's gotten pretty tense now. And Ellie's just basically starts storming off, like, fuck this, I'm out of here, I'm going back. And she's obviously very upset with Riley's dishonesty, having things hidden from her.
Yep.
And so Riley's chasing Ellie down and tries to, get her to listen, and reveals something. She reveals that she's leaving soon. She's being sent by the Fireflies to a new assignment in the Atlanta QZ. And Atlanta, down in Georgia, that's a pretty fair distance from Boston. So she's going away, like basically out of Ellie's life for good, or at least for the long term. And she also says, hey, I tried to stick up for you, or I tried to bring you with me, basically. She tells Ellie that she had asked Marlene if Ellie could join the Fireflies and come with Riley to Atlanta. But unfortunately, this request was denied. So basically, tonight is Riley's last night in Boston, and they won't be seeing each other for a while after that. So it's a big revelation. The bomb is dropped, and Ellie wants to know, like, why did you bring me here? And Riley just says, I wanted to see you, and I wanted to say goodbye. So obviously, this doesn't help Ellie's mood at all. She's still very unhappy at this and just turns to leave. So it's looking like she's going to just walk out, and that'll be the end of it. But when she gets close to the exit, she stops, thinks about it, and turns back around. Starts heading back in.
Nothing like a good pipe bomb to break up a friendship.
Explosives tend to do it. Yeah. That was an interesting point, though. Yeah, it's like you're making explosives for the Fireflies, which they will most likely use on people like me, kind of like, on the people I'm being trained to become later. So it's like you're helping them kill, not necessarily friends of Ellie's, but it does bring back that divide that we saw earlier in the episode, where they're on opposing sides of a bit of an ideological gap. So yeah, that'll definitely cause conflict.
And I love it again because once again, it's the same thing as before. It's like you're having a 16-year-old build pipe bombs and sleep in a mall. It's like, you're promising, with this grand promise of freedom. But what are you doing? You're sending her away down to Atlanta, where there's nothing to look forward but the pills, the hydro, and the bullets.
Right.
And you're like, no, you can't bring Ellie. And there's a reason she can't bring Ellie that they don't talk about. But like, there's a reason she can't bring Ellie. But like, it's like, you're trading. You traded one organization for another. Like Marlene with all of all of her ideals and whatever, and the Fireflies with all of their, ideas and their ideology and everything, are still just another rogue military organization that is left in this world. Just like Fedra, just like what we saw in Kansas City, it's the same thing. So like I love this. Every time they butt heads, it's like, yeah, because you guys are both have both been indoctrinated into military organizations. Like this argument is gonna keep happening, and it means nothing. Right. So Ellie, realizing that like, hey, this is probably her last chance to see Riley, and it's not good to leave like this, heads back into the mall, and here's a human scream, which I was like, fuck, oh no.
Yeah.
And she runs into this nearby store thinking Riley's in danger, only to find the noise is coming from Halloween decorations. The surprise fifth wonder.
That's right.
And so Ellie takes the joke book back from Riley and sits down to talk to her. Ellie shares that she is upset with Riley for disappearing on her and joining up with a cause she doesn't fully understand. LOL, once again, only to give Ellie an amazing night before leaving for good. Riley responds that Ellie doesn't know everything, adding that the Fireflies are like a second family to her, replacing what she'd lost and giving her a sense of belonging.
Right.
Still not liking it, Ellie finally accepts Riley's decision.
Yeah. So it's good that like, it's nice to see friends resolve something, or at least like level with each other and, be honest with each other. Like, I don't like that you did this. And that response with, I understand that, but look at it this way. And it's one of those things like Ellie, really struggled with all of this. And she showed like maturity by, you know, being open about, I don't like this, but I'll accept it. This is what it is. And, also it's a callback to earlier in the episode. We understand that Riley lost both of her parents early on, but has memories of her. Whereas Ellie, was born and basically lost her family immediately. They were both orphans, obviously. That's why they're in the federal boarding school. But Riley has memories of her parents. And, there's an interesting quote that she gives Ellie, or this interesting thing that she said to Ellie, like, I remember my family. And, so it's like, it's harder to have lost them while remembering them.
Yep.
Whereas with Ellie, it's like, you don't remember yours, so it doesn't hurt as much.
Yeah.
And the Fireflies are kind of like filling that void for Riley. So it's one of those, it's a moment of empathy where Ellie can finally see it from Riley's perspective and vice versa.
Oh yeah, 100%. And they did say Ellie is a good leader. Like, like I was like, that was the decision of a good leader. Like, you might not be a good leader for Fedra, but I'm like, generally you are a good leader. But also it's just like, you got to realize like Ellie doesn't have that concept of family.
Yeah.
And to this point, it's Riley. And Riley abandoned her, so.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot, like throughout this season, we're seeing a lot of hints and explorations of Ellie's abandonment issues, and I think a lot of them stem back to this moment, really, where it's like, her entire world is her best friend. Yep. Like, Riley's the one person she really counts on, and it's all downhill from there, really. So
there's Bethany.
Yeah, there's Bethany. That's a frenemy if I've ever seen one. So yeah, they have this moment of kind of like reconciliation, and Riley offers one last thing before the end of the night. She hands over a spooky Halloween mask and then jumps up on the glass display case in the middle of the store. And Riley then takes out Ellie's Walkman, which she had swiped earlier, and goes over to the store's stereo system, and they start dancing together to Etta James's I Got You, Babe. Another classic. Great song. I love that beat. And so, they're like, it's a ridiculous scene if you really look at it. It's like they're just wearing these silly rubber Halloween masks on top of a counter, and Ellie's like reluctant at first, but eventually cuts loose, starts dancing, and they're just boogieing together. It's great. Like, it's like making one last fun memory together. But after a while, Ellie starts slowing down, and she, takes her mask off, and Riley takes hers off too, and they just kind of look at each other, and Ellie's breathless and just begs her really, on some level, says, don't go. Just don't go. And Riley says, okay. Then Ellie goes in to kiss her. She pulls back and apologizes, afraid that she's made a mistake, but Riley makes it clear there's no need to be sorry. They have this moment where, we talked earlier, we referred earlier to these unexplored feelings between best friends where, they are very close. They are the center of each other's world at this point, but there's feelings that neither of them have really expressed openly yet until now. So it's a big moment. And then it's kind of like, it's one of those, what do we do next? So it's kind of like they've professed love for each other, like beyond just friendship. And they've established, you can't leave. I don't want you to leave. And, it's kind of like, okay, well, I won't. So it's a crossroads. So what do we do now?
Yep.
But Riley says, we'll figure it out together.
Yep. Finally getting to the point where you shed the just kind of military brainwashing that has been just that wedge that's been between you two. Cause it's like, this is the thing that's keeping you guys from getting here or exploring these feelings or just like generally being together is commitments to just bullshit organizations.
Yeah. I didn't think of that. And that's an amazing point because like this thing that's been a wedge between them most of the episode is finally falling away. It doesn't matter anymore. They're realizing that like these causes that we both kind of have clung to, they don't matter. What matters is each other.
Yeah. That's why I loved that's why I loved how simple that was. It's like, don't go. Okay. Like that's all you have to do. Like because none of this shit fucking matters. It's like
Yeah.
It's nonsense. But so great moment, instantly fucking ruined
Yeah.
when the infected stalker that we saw earlier arrives and is just tearing through the store, like searching for the source of the noise.
Mm-hmm.
Riley shoots and wounds the stalker, but it catches up with them when they run away, knocking Riley's gun away. Ellie tries to fight it off with her switchblade, but is pinned by the creature. Riley attacks and frees Ellie, but gets grappled by the creature in turn. Ellie makes a desperate charge and jams her knife into the stalker's head, which now that makes sense on the Bill episode why she did that.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Oh, yeah, that's interesting.
and so her celebration at winning the fight is short-lived, however, when Riley notices the bite on Ellie's arm. Riley
Yeah.
holds up her hand, sporting a bite mark of her own, which this is just tragically, I don't know if you want to call it tragically beautiful, but this is just tragic.
It's gut wrenching because, at this point, obviously Ellie doesn't know she's immune yet.
Yeah.
So, when you've grown up in this world, like cordyceps is a reality. You're probably taught from a very young age what the deal is. And so when you're 13 years old, your life is really just beginning and you've just sort of gone on this love journey with your best friend you started it really. And then, yeah, you see like, oh, I'm going to turn into one of those things now. Ellie, again, Bella Ramsey kills this scene of like this moment of pure fear and sorrow and frustration and just wiping the blood away, screaming, no, 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 no. I was gutted at this moment. It was rough. And yeah, no, it was a lot.
Even the look on, just that look on her face. I just it's just burned into my brain.
Yeah.
Just disheveled Ellie. Like you've never seen Ellie like this in the show all the way up until now, even through all of the shit that they've gone through.
Never quite this vulnerable.
Yeah.
Like right now. Yeah, so we this moment cuts us back to the present where Joel is also, going through a moment kind of like past Ellie did. He's shivering in the basement on the mattress, just like slowly bleeding out really. And Ellie, again, we see her at the top of the stairs at the doorway, kind of at that crossroads, making that decision, like, do I stay or do I go? He's told me to leave. He wants me to leave him. Really quick side note here, with this scene with Joel on the floor at the mercy of whatever circumstances he's in, like whether he lives or dies is like hanging by the balance. Joel has this fear in his eyes, like this regret, this sorrow, where when he spilled his soul to Tommy in the last episode, he had such fear that he would let Ellie down. He would fail her in some way, in a similar way he felt that he failed Sarah way back in the day. So this fear of failure has come true. Like his worst nightmare is he's living it right now.
Yep.
And so, that's all happening down there while Ellie's up here reliving, what she went through with Riley. But then she makes the decision. She decides to stay and help him. And so Ellie starts ransacking the house they're in, just looking for anything useful, which prompts a transition back to the mall where we see Ellie smashing all the glass in the store, just going crazy, wrecking everything. And she's venting all this fear and anger at being infected. Meanwhile, Riley, it's like two sides of a coin. We see like the two reactions to this sort of situation where Ellie freaks out and Riley just is sitting there numb.
Yeah.
Her face just still, tears rolling, but like otherwise completely stone faced. And I shout out Storm Reed, who played Riley, just did an amazing job of like that empty, stunned, expression, that sort of reaction. So Ellie and Riley sit down together and just sort of, take in the situation. And Riley says, we basically have two options. She holds up her pistol and says, we can take the easy way out. I think we know what she's referring to. She says, it's quick and painless, but I don't like that option.
Yep.
Option 2, we keep going and use the time we have left. And we usually say quotes, like favorite quotes to the end, so I'll come back to this, but like, no, it's Riley's obviously resolved to not give up yet.
Yeah.
And the two friends, they just sort of lean into each other and cry together. Because what else can you do?
Yeah, that was a really, really, really just like, now that's the tragically beautiful moment.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, that's
it really is.
And so, going back to the present, Ellie in Last of Us fashion, scavenging the house for the jar of scissor pieces.
Yeah,
Fashion's a med kit. No, and so
pretty much.
yeah. So
Kinda.
Ellie is, just rummaging through this house, and
Mhm.
she finds a needle and thread, and runs back down into the basement for some mob style surgery on Joel. And so, like,
Yeah.
Joel seems conflicted about her staying with him, but he moves his hands aside to allow her to help, which is huge.
Mhm. It is, yeah.
So she removes the rag covering Joel's wound and begins stitching it up, which is stressful for her and probably like fucking terrible for him, because like man is just getting his wound stitched with probably a dirty fucking needle while he's
probably rusty.
Yeah. Just completely awake and already in pain. So I guess like getting your stomach stitched is like, I guess, distraction from having your stomach open, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah,
or maybe it's just pain on top of pain.
Yeah, that's not going to feel good no matter what. There's no anesthesia here. This is not a trained surgeon. This is a kid doing her best. So
yeah, I'm like, do you even know how to sew?
Oh my God. Well, I hope Fedra taught her at least like, basic like home ec maybe, but I don't know.
Oh Lord.
So yeah, that's how we close out episode 7. It's just we end on Joel just like, gritting his teeth and just screaming his way through this procedure, and Ellie just sort of doing what she can to keep him alive.
It's the most unclean thing. It's on that dirty, nasty, pissy basement mattress.
So much infection, man, just waiting to happen. I'm not a germaphobe, but even I'm like kind of squirming at that. I'm like, ugh.
Yeah, I'm like, this is giving, like they said when he entered Jackson, you bought yourself 10 minutes.
Pretty much. Well, this concludes our synopsis of The Last of Us episode 7, titled Left Behind. We're going to take another quick break here, but we'll be right back. Okay, we're back, and we have finished up the synopsis of The Last of Us episode 7. This was a tearjerker, man. Like, this season has been pulling no punches whatsoever when it comes to the emotional damage, and episode 7's no exception at all. Just I have a lot of thoughts about that. Well, a few things. Like the one I really want to hit on first is just I loved the through line with the framing narrative here. Kind of like how episode 3 had Joel and Ellie's situation bookending the beginning and end, with Frank and Bill's story in the middle. Episode 7 is kind of like what's going on with Joel and Ellie, bookending this situation with Riley. I loved the parallel here of, we talk about, I talk about Ellie's, abandonment issues a lot, but like, we explore how she just cannot accept Riley walking out of her life long-term, at least, if not permanently. And that kind of balancing that with her determination to look after Joel. It's like, Ellie hates, we know this from episode 5. One of her deepest fears is being abandoned, being left alone.
Yep.
And, with losing her best friend and then having come to grow close to Joel and facing the prospect of leaving him, that's what he wants. He wants her to leave him, but she's adamant at this point. Like, no, I'm not losing anyone else. And so I loved how at the end, it's like, I lost Riley, I'm not losing you. It's kind of like, I love how that through line with this episode shined a light on her abandonment issues, but kind of developed that aspect of her. It's almost like she's coming out of a crutch situation where she's kind of refusing to say goodbye again. I like that. I like that a lot.
Oh yeah, and to build off of that too, my first thought is what I loved about this is like we're seeing early on in Ellie's life, and it's providing context to some things that we've already seen in the show. So like when I saw this, like when I see like, okay, hey, this is the situation that happened with Riley. Like this is, someone she had feelings for, but she didn't get to spend very much time with. and
Mm-hmm.
that all of this love and this new stuff that they discovered together and was just ripped away by the infected. So like, we get that callback to the Bill and Frank episode where, she basically is slightly tortures this infected. It's just like she's just like really like almost sadistic, but it's like it's understandable that you don't like infected in this world because they've toppled society, they're scary, you could be
Yeah.
infected, but like she hates the infected. She has a reason to
Yeah.
hate the infected.
It's very personal.
And then going even further, like you kind of get an understanding of the situation with Sam. So like we talked about in our last
Mm-hmm.
episode, like with Brett, he said that like, oh, I'm mad that we didn't get to like see the like Ellie left and she was like very closed off, and we're glad, I'm sad I didn't get to see more of that Ellie. Like, and like it was 3 months later, she's like this, but like this kind of gives you a window into how she must have felt in this situation, because like
Yeah.
she's reliving this like pretty much the exact scenario with Riley, but now she has like the added detriment of knowing that she can't be infected. So it's like
Right.
reliving she's reliving that traumatic event. And like anybody that does like therapy or trauma work, one of the things that they say to you is that like the big way to get over your trauma is to relive that event and complete it. Like don't go down the same traumatic path, but it's to relive that event and make it all the way through. But like
Mm.
Ellie can't necessarily do that. So
Yeah.
like when it came to Sam, Ellie knew he was infected, and it was like, here's the Riley situation all over again. But hey, maybe now I have this extra tool, I'm gonna try to help, and it doesn't work. And so
Right.
it's boom, now I'm in that same situation again, and I'm gonna be completely closed off again. And so now we're like, here we go, at the end of this, we're back in the same situation. Here's this guy that you are very close to, and he's dying, and he wants you to just leave him
Mm-hmm.
and like leave him and be safe, and she has to make that conscious choice. This person who's like, she's scared of dying out here alone too, but she's also more afraid of Joel dying because they're close, not because
Yeah.
she's fucked without him, but because like she generally cares for him.
Mm-hmm.
So I loved that. I loved it because it's like it's such subtle growth in Ellie's character, because just last
Yeah.
episode it was like, hey man, are you having a heart attack? Like chill out. If you die out here, I'm fucked. Come on.
Mm-hmm.
But
Right.
but in turn, but really it's like, hey, you haven't left me. You've kept me safe, and I enjoy your company. Like you mean something to me,
Mm-hmm.
and like I finally want to do something for some people that mean something to me.
Right. Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think it's just for me, I take away a lot from this episode, but the big thing is just if you don't have to say goodbye, then don't.
Yeah.
Like, keep the ones you love close to you, however you can, however you have to. And yeah, I think that brings me to my other thought. One other thing I wanted to bring back and shout out is that there was a quote near the end of this episode that I really loved, really stuck with, and I think it's pulled pretty much directly from the game. It was really good use of it. Is, Riley and Ellie, they've both been bitten. They're both kind of staring down this inevitable situation. They're facing their own mortality, and they're dealing with this idea of, do we wait and see what happens? Do we end our lives like, early? And when Riley decides, like, no, I'm not, quitting yet. I'm not, dying yet. What she says is, we don't quit. We don't quit. Whether it's 2 minutes or 2 days, we don't give that up. I don't want to give that up. We could just be all poetic and shit and lose our minds together. And this is Riley making that decision, drawing that line in the sand that whatever time I have left, I'm not going to surrender it.
Yep.
Because it's time with you. Whether, no matter how short it is, how long it is, any time I get to have with you, at the end of things, it's worth it. I'm not giving it up. So I think, like you said earlier, just tragically beautiful, tragically poetic.
Yeah.
And I what kills me is that, in both the show and in the game, we don't see the aftermath of, because we know what happens. We know Riley turns, but Ellie doesn't.
Yep.
So we don't really see that situation play out. We don't see like one of them having to, deal like, I'm just kind of speculating here, but if Riley turns and Ellie has to kill her, to kill the infected Riley, kind of like similar to what happened with Sam.
Yeah.
It's like, we don't see that play out, but we can only assume that's got to be one of the most painful experiences of Ellie's life, having to watch her best friend turn, but she doesn't.
Yeah.
And that's when she realizes something's up here. Something's not right here. Why did I not turn like my friend did? So no, I keep coming back to that idea of, we're infected, but we're not gone yet.
Yep.
And whatever time we have left, I'm not giving it up. I really liked that.
It's a Shakespearean tragedy. Like, yeah. It really is. Cause I that's why I love it, because it's like we said, they finally figured out that the Fireflies or Fedra, whether it be that neither of those things mattered. The only thing that mattered was them. And like, after having that powerful realization, like, this makes so much sense. It's like, well then, fuck it. I'm gonna die anyways. I might as well die. I'm gonna turn anyways. I might as well turn with this person that I love. Like, be together forever, as infected. Yeah. And like, that's the tragic part, because that doesn't even work out. Like, so I can only imagine how Ellie must feel, because like, you can't even lose your mind with this person. Like, you discovered this thing, you both got bit, and you can't even stay with this person. Like, she never had a chance with Riley. Yeah. And it was generally just unfair.
Yeah. Ellie had to say goodbye to her again.
Yeah.
In that other way, the final way.
Yeah.
That's terrible. Yeah.
And that has to be even worse, because when you have, I can only imagine that, like, when you have kind of accepted, like, your fate, like, you've accepted that you're going to die, and then you don't die, but everybody else around you, or the person that's closest to you, does die. Like, that is absolutely just like soul crushing. And so like, I can only imagine how closed off Ellie actually is. Yeah.
And actually, this kind of a quick tangent, but this reminds me of something that actually happens in The Last of Us Part 2, where there's a flashback, which I guess in this case is a flash forward, but it's to a moment where Joel and Ellie are living together in Jackson, and they're kind of on a errand together, and they're in this hotel they're in some kind of building filled with infected, and they find a note left behind by two young people, probably not much older than Ellie and Riley were when they got bit. And it's like, in this note, you learn that a couple of teenagers ran away together, like a couple, boy and girl, I guess. They ran away together from Jackson. They snuck out, and they both got infected. And the note says, we tried to end things. Or no, I think the guy, he killed the girl, but he couldn't do it. He couldn't kill himself. Yep. Yeah. So again, you see that situation of like, if we're two people who love each other and want to be together, but this happens to us, what do you do about that? And it's like, I guess they tried to do the easy way out, but it didn't quite work.
Yeah. And it's harder than it thought. And it's like, these situations, like they were also two young teens that waxed poetic. They wanted to change the world and everything. And, and same thing here. It's like, we want to change the world. And like, really none of that mattered. Like, the world is what it is. And like, that's the thing. The world is what it is. And in this crazy world, if you could eke out some sunshine or some happiness with another person, like, that is the thing that matters.
Right.
And that's what I loved. Like, that's why, like, everything from the okay to the very end was like absolutely fucking beautiful. It was sad as hell, but it was like such a beautiful story.
Big time.
And like that kind of goes into my final point in this episode, because like my final point is the thing I've been harping on the entire time, that I really loved the subtlety that, like, Fedra was humanized, and the Fireflies, I think they were pulled down from that like kind of godly status.
Yeah, they were on a bit of a pedestal before this episode, I think.
Yeah.
And yeah.
So they balance the scales with both of them. Like they are on the same level. And I like it. It's just like it's like one ideology against another one, because you have Kwang being like, we hold this place together. Like without us, society falls and all of this shit. And then meanwhile, you have Fireflies over here like, we're going to liberate the QZ and give, freedom back to the people. But what are we doing to do this? We're manipulating people. We're killing people. We're sinking down to the lowest possible point of human instincts in order to justify this, or in order to push this, what we call our grand goal forward. But like, ultimately, like at what cost? At what cost does this all this come at?
I'm glad you pointed that out, because early on when, they're at the rooftops and they're having their early arguments, Ellie and Riley, they talk about like how, Fedra's starving people. And Ellie points out, well, the fact that the Fireflies bombed the depot probably doesn't help that. Yeah. And, Riley's like, oh, that's just propaganda bullshit. We didn't really do that. And Riley's like, oh, Fireflies never blow up anybody. Okay, sure. And Riley's like, well, not when civilians are around. And it's all this tit for tat. Like, no, yeah, it all comes back to you've both been manipulated and you've both been indoctrinated.
And if you go to the first episode, they blew up what's his
an apartment building,
and what's his face's henchman, remember?
Robert. Yeah,
blew up Robert's henchman and killed him. So like free Boston, motherfuckers. Yeah, so
free Boston, or we'll keep killing Boston.
We'll keep blowing up randos.
Right. We will kill Boston until you let it free. Yeah, it's like a reverse hostage situation.
I will blow up 1 billion civilians if you guys don't get the fuck out of here right now. It's like that. It's Always Sunny. I will jam, and jam you up some more till there's nothing left to jam.
Yeah. No, that was big. Yeah, I liked the exploration of that conflict. Something, it was cool how it was like in the background. Yeah. It was important, but it was still happening in the background.
Yeah,
that was cool. Yeah, that does remind me, like, I only have a few little things I want to bring up as to wrap things up here. But yeah, I was going to say that exploring the Fedra side of things was a cool part of this episode. Like the fact that we had a scene with Ellie in the office with her headmaster, basically. And by the way, Terry Chen, the guy who played Captain Kwang, love that guy. He was in The Expanse. He was on Jessica Jones, a few other things. Great actor. But I loved how like you get this sense that, like I said earlier, Fedra's full of people, and people have different motivations. And I think you get the sense that, at least with one person, at least in Captain Kwang's case, this is a guy who genuinely believes he's doing what's best for, his fellow man, basically. Like if we don't set an example and keep, maintain order here in Boston, all the people out there will starve and or murder each other. And, one thing I really appreciate about this character is that he treats Ellie like an intelligent adult. Yep. Like he's like, you're smart. You're almost too smart for your own good sometimes. And I think you understand that you can either have a future where you make things better or you wind up on a dead end road. So no, I like that exploration of Fedra as a concept and as a complicated organization with varying degrees of, shades of gray to it.
Yeah.
That was cool.
Because, like, if you go, like, look at Kansas. Kansas was, like, a bunch of murdering, like, fascist bastards.
Yeah. And then that Fedra was, like, too far gone. Yeah. Not, like, no good people there, basically.
Yeah, so it's like, there's a... and then you look at the responding military presence from the civilians. Same thing. Mm-hmm. Like, one of my friends would always say, like, you ask 100 people, you're going to get 100 different opinions. And, like... Yep. I feel like the same thing is true when you look at like Fireflies and Fedra. It's like, you ask a bunch of Fireflies, why? Ask a bunch of people in Fedra why? And eventually some of those answers are going to start to line up.
Yeah, absolutely. And other side note, I was just going to say here again, I loved how the song "Take on Me" was used, because that's a we know that song from Last of Us Part 2. We know that song from I loved how it was used in the HBO trailer before the season premiered. So no, it's a great song, and it's like it's so versatile too. It can be a happy song, it can be a bit of a bittersweet melancholy song, and no, it's beautiful. So like that there. And the last thing I'll say is a little bit of a gripe. This is like my only complaint with this episode, and that is that I felt like the fight at the end of the episode where Ellie and Riley both get bit was a little underwhelming.
Yeah.
And I only say that as, I guess, a fan of the game, because it's been a while since I've played the Left Behind portion of The Last of Us Part 1. It's been years, actually, but I do remember, and this is a very fond memory, toward the end of that DLC, that kind of chapter of the game, there's like a really exciting, thrilling, action-packed combat sequence where Ellie and Riley are kind of like running from a horde of infected and fighting them off, and like they stack up some bodies. Like they're both like getting their killer instincts on. And I was like kind of excited for something like that to happen in this episode. And it was just a little anticlimactic. It was like one stalker shows up, and I get that, you know, we talked about this like before recording, but like I get that going from game to TV, the action is definitely going to be toned down a little bit. The infected in general are kind of presented as more of a threat than they are in the game. In the game, you can handle runners and stalkers pretty easily. Even clickers are not as dangerous as they are in the show. So I get that, but like, I don't know. I was just hoping for just something with a little bit more oomph. I don't know. Maybe like the fight at the museum in episode 2 set a high bar, because I was like, I want something kind of like that, but I don't know. That was like the only thing I walked away from this episode thinking like, that could have been better.
Yeah, I agree. The mushroom people are too stacked sometimes because
they're OP. They need a nerf.
Yeah, because I was like, hold on a second. You got the gun here, like the sidearm. I was like, and you shot it too, and it was still like coming at you like this. I was like, oh, that's kind of shitty. Like we got like
a 45, looks like a Colt Defender or something like that. And you also got Switchblade. You got
pipe bombs,
broken glass everywhere. Yeah, pipe bombs.
You got a pipe bomb. Just got to make it back to the taco shack. Like, light this motherfucker up. So I'm just like,
yeah, seriously.
Yeah, like, yeah, I was like, I wish there would have at least been 2, you know, because it's like, oh, I feel like I wish we'd have got the narrowly escape, you know, like, we killed one and then we killed the other one, but like, damn, the last one got us.
Yeah, that's that because that's the vibe you get from the game. Like, oh, we've made it. Like, oh, we killed them all, or like, oh, but fuck, look at that. And like, you know, you get a little bit of that with the show. Like, oh, we won the fight. This is great, but. And so you still get that downer moment, but like the stakes didn't feel as high, if you know what I mean. So
yeah,
but no. Otherwise, very happy with this episode. I mean, as always, it's a pretty much about as close to flawless as you can get, honestly.
I think if I have one complaint, and just this is one complaint for the series, I guess it's not even a complaint. It's just something I would want to see. Sure. It's like I will say that in this show, it seems like the purpose of the infected, besides the bloater, is to like spread the infection, because like everybody, they would be going for like the small little bites. I'm like I want to see, like, I guess we did kind of get to see this, so this isn't really a complaint, but I do want to see more like Kansas, like the infected horde, like ripping people to bits. Like, yeah, really, like we haven't seen that a lot, and like, cause like even this one, like it just bit him, like it was like you know, but like you would think that there'd be more like the game where it's like biting in the meat and ripping, you know?
Right. Yeah. It's interesting. Like the bite marks you see on Ellie and Riley are like those little nicks and bruises and whatnot you get during a scuffle. Yeah. Like, oh, I'm fighting you off and you just managed to chomp me a couple times without me noticing. Because, you know, adrenaline and all that. But.
Maybe it doesn't strengthen the teeth like we thought. It's like, hey man, I haven't brushed my teeth in 20 years.
The first thing to go when the fungus gets you, your gums just it starts in the mouth.
I've got the gingivitis. I can't bite down too hard.
Hey, you got to make room for all the little tendrils and whatever. Which is funny because actually, now that I mention it, you know, the guy, the infected stalker that attacks them in this episode, he's like, you know, stuck to the wall with all those, you know, tendrils and whatnot. You'd think that there was like a colony. Why would he be by himself if like he has all those, you know, spores and tendrils growing everywhere? You'd think he'd have buddies nearby who'd, you know, get the signal, I guess. But
just him flaking off the wall.
Yeah. The Boston horde outside the wall didn't get the memo about the mall.
Yeah.
Like, hey, there's food in the mall. Let's go.
I'm the only one here, guys. What the hell? The real Left Behind. Is that guy.
Yeah, let's get an episode about that stalker, how he got left behind in the mall.
Well, that about wraps it up. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you did, please take a second to rate and review us on Apple Podcast. It really helps us grow the show. Be sure to connect with us on Twitch, Instagram, and Twitter at lore_party. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.